Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Susan Coleman, and she has an amazing story of her near-death experiences. It was from a forerunner accident.
Yes, the first one was I lost control of the forerunner, but I lost control right in front of the exit to the Baptist Memorial Hospital. So I went round and around and it threw me out. And all those
It
doctors
happened
and
at a time
nurses
they were
got
headed.
me.
It happened at a time they were just headed to work, right?
Right. And they called an ambulance and then they flew me to the med where I spent 6 months with 3 broken neck places in my neck and my lungs collapsed. And I was on a ventilator for 6 months, which you don't do. But my mother, I'm an only child, and my mother was, no, 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 don't take her off. So I stayed on it, but I came out of the coma,
Okay. Do you
which
want to go?
shocked people.
Do you want to go back a little bit and start before the accident and go into as much detail as you can so we can follow along with what happened?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I just get so excited here. Well, the first thing that happened to me well, in the 1980s, they discovered a lump in my breast, but my children were little, and I thought if they start operating on me, this cancer is going to go everywhere, and I'm going to lose being a mother, and I wouldn't let anybody touch it. So in 2022, I don't think they were mammograms. I was having some type of test every 6 months to take pictures of this lump. And it just sat there. But in 2022, it started to shrink and then it disappeared. So when you are in a cancer center for months and months and years and they lose the lump, it is amazing. I mean, every technician in the place showed up to see if they could find it, and it was like it was something. And so finally they said, "No, it is gone. It's nowhere to be found. We will see you next year." And that was really good. But I often wonder this. I never worried about it because, like, when people get sick or get an illness, they're jumping up and down. Oh, what am I going to do and what's going to happen? I didn't worry about it. I just knew I had to raise my children and I forgot it, except when they took those pictures. And then I would go home and they would say it's still there. And I would say, all right, see you in 6 months. So that was amazing. And so back in 1999 was my first near-death experience. And I was driving a forerunner down Highway 6 to see my mother in Oxford, Mississippi. And I lost control and it rolled and rolled and rolled, but I never hit anybody else. And it threw me out of the car. Then the doctors and the nurses that saw that all made me be still on the ground. I remember somebody telling me that I kept trying to get up. And they kept saying, no, stay down. And so they called the ambulance because they all worked at the hospital. And they took me to the hospital where the helicopter came and got me and took me to the med, which is a trauma center. So I stayed at the med for 6 months on a ventilator, and my lungs kept collapsing. And they put what's called a halo on my hand back then, which technically it's a metal contraption that they screw into your head and it sits on your shoulders. So they did that, I guess, to stable my neck. So instead of, they always call the family and say, do you want to unhook her and all this? And my mother kept saying, no, she's my only baby, at 50, but still. So nobody unhooked me. Well, during this time, to me, it is like a dream when I look back at it, but I'll always remember it. I was sitting on top of a single wide trailer with a lady named Kathy that I knew who had died of ovarian cancer, and her mother-in-law who had died of some other kind of cancer. And we just sat on top of this trailer. And so I would watch my children. They would be down below on the ground playing in the dirt and doing stuff little kids do. And I would say, I've got to go back to my children. I've just got to. So that is basically all I remember. Now I hear stories that it was rough on me when I came out of the coma. I had very little time to recuperate because of the insurance companies. I'd been there 6 months. So they sent me to the Baptist Hospital, I believe it was in South Haven, for rehab, which was basically, they put what's like a leash around my waist to try to teach me to walk, because I couldn't walk. I wasn't allowed to have anything to drink because of my lungs. Even after I was released, it was a long time before I could have anything to drink because of my lungs.
No, they had.
So then yes. And it's like I had broke every bone everywhere. Because it was a miracle I was even alive, but they kept me alive for my mother, and then I sat on the trailer top. Surely I didn't sit there 6 months, but you never know, because I didn't know anything about.
Did your kids seem like the same? Did your kids seem like the same age they would have been at that time? Like, do you believe you really?
No, they were younger at that time. They were older when I had the wreck. But when I saw them from the trailer, they were little kids. They were like 5 and 6. They were little bitty kids out digging in the dirt and playing.
What do you make
But
of
in
that?
reality, they were older.
What do you make of that? Why do you think you saw them younger?
Maybe because they were my babies, and in my mind, they would always be my babies. And even when they're grown, I would think of them as my babies. And that's what I saw them as.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yes. And so they put me in the hospital in South Haven, and they walked me around with a leash on my waist. And I remember my big thing was I wanted a bath, because nobody had given me a bath in 6 months.
Oh no.
And I know it was bad. But finally, they put me in a shower stall, and some nurse came in there and hosed me off, like with a water hose kind of thing. and that was my bath. But I was happy because I finally felt clean.
Okay.
And then it wasn't very long after that, my husband said that I had to go home because the insurance wouldn't pay anymore. And if he put me in a nursing home, he would lose all his stuff. So that was not an option for him. So he took me home in a wheelchair, and he hired I think he was about 14 years old to stay with me because the whole deal was I could not be left alone. Well, at that age, they've got a lot more on their mind than babysitting the lady in a wheelchair. And she was supposed to take me to physical therapy. Well, it turns out she didn't have a driver's license. So I knew then that if I was going to get any further in my progress, that I had to do it.
So was your husband not home at all during this time?
He would give me a bath. He really would. I didn't have that good of a marriage with him. I really didn't.
Okay.
And, I kind of felt like I was a burden, and maybe he felt like I was a burden. And I do know that he put a mattress in the living room, and I slept on the floor in a mattress. But he did give me a bath, which when you don't have a bath for a while, that's great.
Yeah.
He wasn't much about cooking and stuff like that. And I do remember when the weather started to get cold, I had to turn on the stove to get warm and open the oven because he was going to save money on the electric bill. But that was just his personality, and that's how he always was. And eventually I got out of that, and, well, rest in peace wherever he is. But I learned a lot from that. So I knew I had to do it myself. I remember specifically, you remember 9/11?
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, I was sitting in my wheelchair, and this is the strangest thing. I had dreamed of 9/11 not knowing what it was. I just saw like airplanes hit towers. I've never been to New York, but I saw that. And then when I saw it on television, it really wasn't a surprise to me. But my mother was all upset. Everybody was upset about all that, but it was like I was reliving a memory. So I started teaching myself to walk, to cook, to bathe, just your basic everyday things that everybody has to learn to do, that you kind of learn from a baby. So I started. Now, my husband told me that the hospital says I'll never drive a car again, and I'll never do this, and I'll never do that. Well, I've proved them wrong because I did do all that. When you tell me I will never, I'm most likely am going to do it to show you I will do it. Except for certain things, like go face to face with a shark through the water or something like that. But yeah, I did it. I taught myself to drive. I did it by driving a little ways down the road and coming back. And then I'd wait a few hours and drive a little ways down the road and come back. So I did do that. I taught myself to cook. I taught myself to bathe myself. to dress myself, to do laundry. I went through a time where really this is cruel now that I look at it, but they would cook and, you know, they would never offer me food. For some reason, I wanted to be babied or
Who's they?
offered, or
Your husband?
that would be my husband and my son and my son's girlfriend. Let's see what
Did they
her
all live
name's
there?
Allison. Yes, they all live there.
And they would cook and not offer you anything?
No, and that it was like, well, the deal was they wanted me to go because my husband had Gail, which
Because
is
what?
fine. I went to school with Gail, but they
Oh,
needed to let me get well.
your husband had Gail.
Yeah, that was his girlfriend at the time, and they all knew that. And
Now, you say you
people
taught
don't.
yourself to walk and cook and bathe. Did you have a mental, something injury to your mind, or was this all physical? You had to teach yourself.
Everything was physical.
Okay.
That is the best thing of both of my near-death experiences. It was all physical, and they put me on a breathing machine because, you know, for like COPD, because I had been on the ventilator for so long. And that was good. And my husband did take me to see all these doctors. And he did try to get me on disability, which was strange, but it didn't go through then.
You couldn't get disability?
No, he made $1,200 a week at FedEx. They thought, you
Because
know,
he
they
made
thought it was
that, you couldn't get help?
no. Uh, well, more
Wow.
or less, he made too much money for me to get disability, and I was not aware of the services that you can get when you are sick, such as Medicaid, would have somebody come in and clean the house and help you with stuff. I did not have any awareness of anything. The only thing I was aware of was hospice when my mother got sick. I didn't know about all these other programs and all that I know now about.
Wow.
But
So
that's
once you
water under the bridge.
so once you got walking, cooking, driving, bathing yourself, did you leave your husband or what happened then?
I took a little bit of time. Well, my mother got sick and died in 2006 of a heart valve condition. She had her own business, which she gave it to me, that she ran out of the house. So the last month of her life, I moved her into my house, and she had taught me how to run it. So that would have gave me income to get out, plus my inheritance from the business and the selling of all her property and all this stuff was very much. But I was so upset about losing my mother. My ex-husband put it in a joint banking account, and it didn't occur to me. All I knew is I wanted to talk to my mama, and she was gone. And I didn't have brothers and sisters, and we weren't close to aunts and uncles or nobody.
You were only child?
And that was a really bad thing for me to do that, because all of a sudden jet skis showed up and a new truck from Texas that's diesel showed up. But all this time, all I could think of is my mama's gone. So I tried to run her business to give me income. And what happened with that is she would load tractor trailer trucks with steel beams out of Auburn, Arkansas, and send them to the Northeast for a commission. And that went pretty good until Nucor Yamato decided they had to have $1 million liability insurance on each truck. So I talked to all my truck people, and they could not do it because the cost of diesel was going up, and it was just too much. So they started hauling lumber and all kinds of other things. And one of them even decided to sell his company, and now he's in the pest control business.
Oh.
So they all did what they had to do to survive. I guess we all do.
Yeah.
So we shut that down. I had already left my ex-husband when I shut that down. And what we did was I talked to a lawyer in Oxford, and he said that the best thing for me to do was to get out of there and nobody knows I'm leaving. So it'd keep me safe. Because he had never hit me or nothing, but he was verbally abusive. And so what we did was one Friday morning, some people from Tupelo showed up, packed me up, and off I moved to Oxford. I was hidden for a long time until the courts made us tell his lawyer where I was. But then, because he had all that money, he could buy all these expensive lawyers, and I didn't get alimony for a long time, whatever it is, temporary alimony, for a very long time, because they kept taking the court date and moving it around. So we never went to court. And it would get postponed, and then it would get postponed, and then there would be no alimony. So I lived the best way I could. Finally, I got tired. I just got tired of all of this mess, and I told them to settle. I had the girl's name and her address and everything, and I had witnesses that did not want to testify in court. Because then it would be like picking sides, and they did not want to be involved. So I said, just settle all this. So we agreed to settle on irreconcilable differences. So we did that. And I didn't get alimony or nothing. Like I think I love seeing a couple of TVs and a clothes hanger.
Was you able to get your disability then?
No, I did not get my disability until I had the stroke and the heart attack.
Oh.
I know I live an exciting life here, but I'm a survivor, and I don't stop. So I moved out
in the hospital because they wouldn't let you be seen because you didn't have insurance.
Yes. Okay, I had a job for a cleaning company. And that's how I made my money after the $1 million liability insurance that nobody could pay. So I got a job at a cleaning company. And I cleaned doctor's office buildings and all kinds of places. And then my back started giving me a lot of trouble, which was most likely from that wreck where I broke my neck in 3 places. And so I got somebody I know, they actually gave me an MRI for a couple of $100, and I had a bulging disc and all kinds of stuff going on. And so that way, I worked until I could. The last place I worked was the FBI, Federal Marshals, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosive. I was their housekeeper. But you only work a few hours during the day, 5 days away, and you don't look at nothing. And all of their really heavy duty work they did after I was gone or at night. You know, if they say vacuum, you vacuum, and you just do exactly what they say. And they had little toys, and I thought they were playing with little toys. Those toys had cameras on them. And I would be doing something, and then I would see this little toy, and I'd think, well, they must not have much to do today. No, they were watching with that little toy, which is kind of cute. And I do know that when I would go into the bathroom to use the bathroom after a certain length of time, if I didn't come out, they came in after me, which they had to do that because of who these people are. And I stayed totally on everything and just did my job and worked 5 days a week for them. So toward the end, which would be January of 2015, my back just went out. So I put all my belongings in storage. And I moved into my car with my dog. So I went to Batesville, which was where I had lived with my ex-husband for 28 years. And I parked my car in front of the police department because I knew there were cameras there and that would be safe. And then finally, one day they came out and said, you can't live here. And they took up a donation and they called and sent me to the Salvation Army shelter in Tupelo with the donation, and I moved in over there. So that's when we really started trying to get me on disability. The MRI that I had, I showed to a disability lawyer, and he said, you should get disability quick with this. But in the meantime, while I was showering at the shelter, I had 2 mini strokes. All I knew is I thought I fell in the bathtub, but it turned out they were mini strokes. And so the disability people sent me to a neurologist in Corinth. And he said, yes, I think they were mini strokes, but then he sent me back to the shelter. But I had lost all control of my bowels and everything. So the Salvation Army said, you can't live here like that. So they sent me to the hospital in Tupelo. And so I called my former pastor at the church I went to in Batesville, and he came and got me out of the hospital. And he took me to the ER in Batesville. And he's told me, you sit here until they admit you because something's not right. You can't hardly walk and all this stuff's going on. And I sat there, and I sat there. And a few times they took me back and said, no, we can't admit you. So the last time they did that, it was like about 2 or 3 in the morning, and they took me back there and looked at me and said, no, we can't admit you. So I went to the front desk and I said, where is your ladies' room? Why can't you admit me? And they said, because you're homeless and you don't have a job or insurance.
Wow.
So I turned around and I made about 2 or 3 steps, and then I fell flat on my face and had a major stroke right in the ER.
Wow.
So that's bad, but that's good, because if you're going to have one, that's the place to have it.
That's true.
And after that, I got the best care. Oh, you would not believe. I had social workers. All these people showed up then. And I was so naive, and I guess I was so sick because, you know, this had been going on so long, and I wasn't thinking right. I thought, these are the nicest people. They're going to take great care of me. Aren't they so nice?
They
I
never
never
do.
thought about suing no one. I never thought of nothing, no suing, no lawsuit, no nothing. So they kept me for a little while, and then they sent me to Germantown, Memphis, where they did surgery on my neck. They kept running tests. They put a piece of metal in the front and a piece of metal in the back.
Wow.
After this surgery, I'd had the major stroke, and that's when they did the tests and became so nice, and all these people showed up, and they sent me for surgery. Then we had this surgery with the metal in my neck, and after that, I remembered them hearing them call my son and saying, she's had a heart attack too. You need to get down here and do something. She's on life support. So he showed up. But I love my son, and he was my baby, but he's also, his daddy gave him everything. He bought him property. He bought him a race car to drive. He bought him is what he did, which that happens sometimes. No matter how good Mama is, Mama can't buy him.
Right.
So what they decided to do was unhook the life support without finding out if I was brain dead or not. I remember laying there, and I remember some nurse. I had a male nurse, and that male nurse going nuts about she's going to drown in her body fluids. And then I remember somebody putting tubes down my nose and taking care of that, I assume. So I laid there, and I heard the click. I remember hearing it click. And then after it clicked, I was way up above. I had my spirit had left my body. And I was up on the ceiling looking down at my son, who was by himself in the room, just crying his eyes out. And then when I saw that, I thought, well, gosh, I need to come help him, because something ain't right for him to be crying like that. But it could have been he felt in the middle of, who do I please? My daddy, my mama, my wife, and whatever. And so I saw that. Then it's like I was given a choice. I felt more peace, more love, more acceptance sitting up on that ceiling. I did not go through a tunnel or see a past life review. I didn't get that far. It was almost like I was afraid to leave my milk too far from my body. I never went too far. So I basically said, don't cut the silver cord. I want to go back. And I got to go back. So then I stayed in the hospital a couple of weeks, but I was technically by myself. And I remembered hearing a nurse tell another nurse that they were giving me too much Dilaudid, because that's what the family wanted. And so then I remember arguing, don't give me no more Dilaudid, give me morphine. And they did it like once, then they went back to the Dilaudid. And I said, well, nope. And so then I could not eat. I couldn't swallow, probably because of the metal in my neck. So they put a feeding tube in my stomach. But the thing about the feeding tube is, in the nursing home, once I could eat, they took the feeding tube out. And when you put in a feeding tube, you are supposed to have a balloon at the end of it so it doesn't move around or come out, and you can pour liquid in it. And my feeding tube did not have a balloon. And they were in total shock, like they couldn't believe how all this stuff happened.
How long did you have
So
that?
they finally just, yes, ma'am.
How long did you have that feeding tube with no balloon in it?
I'm going to say at least 6 or 8 months.
Wow.
Because then once they got the feeding tube in me, they sent me to a nursing home in Clarksdale, Mississippi, down in the Delta, because I couldn't live in the hospital and die in the hospital. I remember they were just frustrated because it just seemed like no matter what happened, I lived on. It wasn't my time, and I wasn't giving up, because that was my key to this whole situation. I call it surf without waves. I've even got a page on Facebook with it, because that's what I did. I did not fret. I did not bite my fingernails. I did not jump up and down and say, what's going to happen to me? I just went with it. Go with the flow. So I end up in the Delta. I've never been to the Delta.
Delta?
And down in Clarksdale, Mississippi.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the nursing home they sent me to.
Did you ever think about suing? I mean, you were in the hospital, they refused to see you, and then you fall and you break your neck.
I never thought about it. And I never, that is, I guess that's how naive I was back then. Now I would do something because, I'm smarter. I had to get smarter to survive, but I never thought about that, because in my mind, I kept thinking, these are great people. They're taking great care of me. And boy, they took great care of me then. I tell you what, I had social workers. I had the best food. I had, I was treated great. I had flowers.
Don't sue us. Look how nice we are.
No, yes, that's what I thought. But I got to Clarksdale. So when I get to Clarksdale, I'm paralyzed from the neck down. And I automatically get on disability because my lifespan, they decide ain't going to be very long. This was in 2015, so I get disability real quick. And what they did is my roommate was 90 years old and was a charge nurse for 60 years. And I actually went to church in Oxford, Mississippi with her brother. You can't plan this kind of stuff. So her brother comes to visit her and sees me and takes my picture, and we all visit. And so Miss Franks made me her project. She basically taught me how to feed myself, and I started, because I didn't never have physical therapy in Clarksdale, because I'm not supposed to live long. So I didn't have it.
90-year-old nurse in a patient and herself in a nursing home. You become her patient. It's ironic.
Yes. And she watched me. Oh, I mean, she was great. And if I didn't get a bath, which she thought I needed a bath for, she was down that hall, and she was like my guard dog. She was great. But eventually, she taught me to feed myself, which was good. And she talked them into putting me in what is called a leisure chair, which is not really a wheelchair because you're leaning back. And so I'm in this leisure chair, and she decides you can't stay in this room forever. You got to push it with your tippy toes. So she taught me to push that heavy chair with my tippy toes. So I went all over the nursing home in that leisure chair on my tippy toes. After a while, I guess I don't know if somebody said something to them or what, but it was like they said, "Why don't we put you in a wheelchair?" And I could get around real good in that wheelchair after tippy toeing around for so long, and that was good. Then they had an election, and the residents voted me president of the resident council.
Yeah.
So I had to make decisions and do things like that. And that was kind of neat because it gave me something to do mentally. And they would take me to the library and let me get books and just little bitty things you take for granted until you don't have them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided, since I like to read books, they invented a program where I would read to the residents and we would discuss books, and all kinds of little good things happened there. And being there, I did learn to stand up out of that wheelchair. And that is the one thing Miss Franks did do too. She taught me to stand up, but she said, "Don't you tell nobody, you're not supposed to do that." But she did that so I could get in the bed by myself or go to the bathroom by myself if there was nobody around to help me. So
did you
that's
go
what we
from
did.
there to your own apartment, or?
Yes, but I made one more stop. I had a friend here in Water Valley, Mississippi, and I moved. They started making a lot of changes in Clarksdale. They had a new person in charge down there. And my gut feeling was I didn't like what I saw. So I asked to come up here to Water Valley where I knew some people. And it was really great. They came and interviewed me on a Friday and moved me on a Monday. So I got to Water Valley, and in Water Valley, I was allowed to have physical therapy. In fact, I still go now just to keep in shape. That's been 5 years ago. So they taught me to go from the wheelchair to the rollator, which is the walker with wheels.
Oh.
And they taught me to use the cane, which I can. I've got the cane and I use it now, but I also towed it a lot of times just to have it with me just in case. So when I get to Water Valley, it's totally different. We don't have to pay for TV here. We don't have to pay for undergarments, and we get to choose food. And I got all kinds of physical therapy here.
I think I heard that.
And they would take us on trips like to Captain D.
On another podcast, when you were homeless with your dog, you end up having to give your dog away.
Yes, now that hurt, man. That is when that is before I went into the shelter. I didn't have anywhere to put the dog, and I love my dog. It was like me and my dog. And then I did have to give my dog away to go into the shelter in Tupelo. And in my mind, I think someday I'm going to have another dog. I can't in my apartment now, but that's what really hurt. And I often wonder in my mind if having to give that dog away was the reason I had those strokes, because it tore me up.
Do you know the people
It's
that
like,
got your dog?
no. In fact, I knew the guy who took it, but then if he sent it somewhere to the shelter, and then the shelter sent it to the Northeast. So I knew I'd never see her again. And that ate me alive. Because, you see, the whole deal was I'm supposed to live in the nursing home the rest of my life or else pass away. So I would not need a dog. They gave away my car because I will not never need a car. And they gave away everything in storage. And because they were going to do me a favor, which I guess if I would have passed, it would have been a favor, but it didn't work that way.
Who's they? Who did that? Who made you give away
Uh,
everything?
okay, I had a lady I used to work with who was the manager over me when I was cleaning the FBI, and she helped me quite a bit. And she had the key and everything to the storage unit, but they kind of pushed me and said, "You'll never get out of here. You'll always live in a nursing home." In fact, when I got to Water Valley, I told somebody that, and they told me, "No, I don't think so," and they were right. They kept pushing, "You will never live on your own. You will always live in a nursing home." But I proved them
Or you weren't going
wrong.
to live
And
at all. I mean, you just defied everything, didn't you?
well, it gets the end of it's even better. Okay, here I'm in Water Valley and I'm being treated like a queen here. I mean, it's great because in Clarksdale, the main thing of employment down there is chopping cotton, and I had no idea what chopping cotton was. And, I was so lost with those people. But up here was kind of like coming home. Now, there was a program that the government had called Bridge to Independence. So somebody informed me of that. They have what's called an ombudsman who comes to meetings, I think it's once a month in nursing homes. And she was good friends and shared an office with the ombudsman in Clarksdale. So she informed me of that Bridge to Independence. And she said they will pick like 5 people in the state of Mississippi to be a part of the project. Would you be interested? And I said yes. And they accepted me. They had a big meeting in Jackson. And what they did was they rented me an apartment. They furnished it with furniture and linens and dishes, everything you would need to live. They bought me enough groceries, really, for more than a month. They did. And they paid all my bills the first month until I could get the checks coming to me for disability and Social Security. And then I could handle my own money. So we did that. And the apartment I ended up in was a Section 8 that was not good. I mean, your neighbor changed every week, and that place was rough. But I knew in my gut feeling that I had to get out of there. So what I did, I made a deal with the grocery, and they started saving me egg boxes with handles. I started collecting newspapers from the news people down here and putting them in the back room. Just like I was going to move tomorrow, I know where I'm going, and it's sitting in this crate. I had no idea. Well, there I'm doing all this, and so I started calling around, and it turns out the lady who is the resident manager of where I'm at now remembered me from when I lived in Batesville from years and years ago. And she was friends with old resident manager of where I was coming out of, and she rented me this apartment. So here I've got an apartment. But how do I move all this stuff? So I go by gut feelings, instinct, or intuitiveness. I do that a lot. Gut feelings and intuitiveness. So it turns out my nurse that came to see me, a nurse who was working with her husband, had a tractor trailer truck and three brothers with forklifts. And so they showed up and moved me all the way over here. And and when I got here, I didn't realize that the lady that lived here had passed after living here for years. So I have a new stove, a new refrigerator, new blinds, new floor. Everything is new except the bathtub. Everything. I mean, I And so, yep, I'm here, and my rent when I got here was $133. And
Good for
so,
you.
yeah, things just, it's like I put on something I like to beat the odds, and I do.
You certainly have. Well,
But it's good.
I appreciate you sharing your story. Um, I don't know. It seems
Do
like you should
you
have
have any
a Superwoman
questions?
cape on or something.
No, I'm just me. But I believe that there's one thing I'm kind of fighting right now on my Facebook page is people that I can't, I won't, it'll never happen to me. I'm no good, da da da. And then it wires into your brain because I studied quantum physics and stuff a little bit. And if you repeat to yourself over and over that you can't and you won't, you can't and you won't, because your brain will make it happen. And I never did that. I just wrote it and I did it. And I'm sure this isn't the end of it, but that's good too. That's my deal. I want people to keep trying, and news is good, but news can bring you down bad. But if you look at the words, they will say so and so could happen or may happen. They don't say it will happen, but people don't realize that and they take it as fact and they get all upset.
Yeah, we're
Our
living in
world
a
needs
world
to
of
change.
whiners, aren't we?
Yeah, but I don't know, little things mean a lot to me now. Little bitty things. Like when you see the way I get around because I don't have a car. Medicaid transport totes me to my doctor's offices and stuff. And one time, one of the drivers bought me a Happy Meal, and that meant more to me. That Happy Meal, because I love McDonald's, and I had had McDonald's since 2015, and that was just so great, little bitty things.
Yeah.
And it's just good. It is great what you're doing because, and I will say this, when you have a near death experience, you are no longer afraid to die. You don't push it. At least I don't push it. I'm not suicidal and I'm not, let's go today stuff. But it's not, I didn't see hell and fire and brimstone, and I, like some people do. And I often wonder if you see what you think in your brain is where you will be. And from listening to other people, they believe in Buddha, then they see Buddha, and they believe in Jesus, and they see Jesus. But that made a big difference, and I changed big time after them shutting the life support off.
People say, I don't believe in heaven, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in Jesus, I don't believe in angels. Well, then maybe that's not what you'll have. You'll have something else.
That's
So then
right.
other people don't believe that. They have their NDE and now they come back and realize that that stuff was all real. So I don't know. We don't know
Yes,
how
and
it
it
works. We
makes
can
a
only guess.
difference. You can only guess, that's right, until you get there.
Yeah. That's why I asked how old your kids were, because during my second NDE, I went with Jesus in the future, and my boys were still the same age, and they were just accepting, they were trying to accept the fact, they were discussing the fact that mama died. And so I seen a
Mhm.
future that never happened, but was going to happen, if I stayed in heaven. And my middle son Jeremy was just so upset and screaming, bawling, and I was like, I had to go back and raise my kids, which I wanted to anyway, and I just felt so horrible that my kids needed me. I was like, I can't be here. My kids need me. So that gives us that
We were
will.
lucky.
Yeah, we're lucky that we were
Yes,
able to come back and fulfill our life, because so many aren't. People that die in car accidents, and the things I died of, and they don't come back and finish their life mission. Well, I
I
appreciate you
agree,
coming
because we've
on.
got a mission.
Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to share?
Thank you. This has been interesting, and the world is changing now. It's getting more better to me. My mother was always spiritual, but well, I live in Mississippi, which is the Bible Belt, so but she wouldn't go to church, which that was her decision, but she paid a price for it because she got criticized so much for that,
We're not going to
which
church.
is sad. But everybody's got their own journey to walk, I believe. And we're all here for a reason.
Now,
And I'm
you were
alive for a reason.
when you were sitting there on top of that single wide trailer looking down at your kids playing, you were with your mother-in-law and who else?
I was with a girlfriend and my girlfriend's mother-in-law who had
Okay.
died of cancer. And we were just sitting on the trailer. And surely we didn't sit there 6 months, but I didn't have any, I didn't have any space and time. And because that's all I remember. But I do know they were somebody told me that they were doing something with an IV tube and it had a bubble in it. All these horror stories, but I didn't pay attention because I made it.
Yes, you did.
I made it. And you made it too.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, you did. And we've got a job to do because, yes,
Are you allowed to have a dog where you're at?
no. But someday I will. Yes. Dog, well, there's little dogs from the next complex that walk around, but they're not friendly. But someday I will have a dog. But then the rent is so cheap here, and it's really nice here because that lady passed away, and I got everything new. And then the Medicaid program bought me everything new.
Good.
It's just a good place for me right
Well, stay put.
now. Yes, that's the thing. Stay up and stay positive because you never know what your next life journey is going to be. And little things like we had a snow a couple of years ago, and I thought I'm going to go outside and build me a snowman. And the A that comes in here and mops and stuff said, "You can't do that, you'll fall." So I didn't do it, keep her quiet. But I think next year, if it snows, I'm going to make one, even if it's just right on the porch, just because that's what I want to do and be very careful.
Yeah, you don't want back in the nursing home and go through all that stuff.
Well, what's even neat is like I'm back in physical, I've got unlimited physical therapy because I was paralyzed. So I went back, and I've been back there a couple of weeks now, and it's in the same nursing home I was in before. It's a nursing
Oh,
home and a hospital. So I see a lot of people that I used to know that are helping me now, and that's good too.
well, God bless that 90-year-old nurse that you happened to be fortunate enough to share a room with that helped you get on your feet.
I know it because in the fact that I went to church with her brother, I mean, he come in there showing me pictures of our pastor that he took, and I mean, it was like, whoa. And you can't plan this stuff, and you can't plan a major stroke in the ER waiting room after they tell you go away, there's no room for you, and it's on camera, and there's people standing around, and yeah, yes,
Yeah.
I beat the odds. And I think if people really have the right mind and mindset, they can beat the odds, except in certain things like, well, most people in 9/11, they didn't have a choice. They were going.
It
But
just
I'm sure
upsets me.
some of them didn't.
It just upsets me all this money going towards illegal immigrants, and here we have people in our own country that are turned away from hospitals because they don't have money or insurance.
Have you
People
seen all of
homeless.
those homeless people that, like out in California, living in tents and living in, what is it, in Las Vegas? They live in tunnels under the city.
Charity begins at home. We got to take care of our
Yes,
own first before we start bringing other people in. It's no different than our own homes. If we don't have enough to feed our own family, we can't be bringing in more people and not feeding our own.
I
And that's what we're
agree.
doing. Yeah. It's
I
just like
agree. It's
Americans are
nice
second
to
class in our
help.
country.
Yes, yes. And there's so many people, and we're all just hurting. And then they argue so much in the government now.
And it's just
Who is
unbelievable that you
right?
couldn't get disability, after
No,
everything you were dealing with. You couldn't walk and you couldn't cook, you couldn't drive, you couldn't bathe yourself, but you couldn't get disability. And then for your mom to leave you that money and then your husband to take it. I mean,
he
but
had a time with it. And he helped me out by cleaning her house out. I don't know where all the jewelry went or the furniture, but I'm sure he pocketed it. But the thing of it is, he did, after we divorced, he did marry his girlfriend, and he was in his 60s, and he had a baby. And the baby now, I guess Henry's about 2 or 3 years old, and his daddy died of cancer.
your ex died of cancer.
Yes,
How old was
and
he?
left. Gosh, he was probably about 67. He had prostate cancer. And he died and left his girlfriend or wife then and his baby, and didn't get to see his baby grow up. So karma does what karma does. So he got payback. I didn't have to do nothing. I just let him go and do his stuff.
I believe that. I mean, years ago, I was dealing with something for such a long time with somebody just out to get me, out to get me. And her son had died instantly. And then years later, I'm just like, God, why does she get by with everything? Why does she get by with what she's doing to me? And all of a sudden, I heard say that it already been done. And I knew that her son had died because of, I mean, she was horrible to a lot of people, not just me. I mean, I could write a book on this woman and the power she had to do it. And today it looks like she's won, but she didn't. I mean, I don't that I'm not saying everybody's child dies, that they did it and they deserved it, but I mean, this particular woman, I was just like crying, like, God, why did she get by with all this? Why don't you do something? And then all of a sudden I heard it's already been done. And I immediately thought about her son that had died, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I better be a good girl. So,
Yes. They'll get payback. You just might not be around to see it.
yeah. Not in this life, the next, I'm sure. So, I had a guest on
That
the
is,
other day, and she said, "Oh, there's no judgment." God, and the people in comments say, "God doesn't judge." I'm like, you keep believing that. You go right ahead. I'm going to stay on the safe side.
that's right. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, God gave us a brain to think.
Yeah. And a heart to feel. I mean, it just seems like there's so much heartlessness. I mean, for anybody to do the things that's happened to you and leave you, eat in front, your own family eat in front of you and not offer you anything. I mean, that's kind of
That
weird.
was
Nobody,
bad. That was,
when,
I remember that. And I would have to wash my own dishes. And they didn't want me there. I knew that. And then finally, when I could and I got situated, I left and hid.
I mean, we've all seen the worst of humanity in our lives, and we've seen the best of humanity. And that 90-year-old nurse, and I mean, I just picture her, that sweet woman, taking you under her wing. You said she was a nurse for 60 years. She's 90 years old. She's in a nursing home. She needs help herself, and she's helping you and making you her patient. I just love that. That's
Oh,
the best of
yes, she
humanity
was
right there.
wonderful.
It's beautiful. And the people that helped you move, and the police that helped, pick up a collection, helped you get into a shelter because you're living out there with your car. I mean, there's miracles everywhere. I mean, there's a lot of bad in this world, but there are miracles everywhere too.
Yes, you can't focus on the bad.
Yeah, we have to
Well,
focus on
people
those
do,
miracles
but
and try to be a miracle for someone else ourselves.
yes, because you'll get a chance. You might not plan it because I didn't plan social workers and all of this, but I sure got them.
I remember one guy telling his NDE one time, and it just struck me that part of it was in his life review, he was shown something he thought was so insignificant, but heaven showed him how they loved this. That he had stopped along the road for something, and on his way back up, he seen this tree that was dying that needed water. And he stopped this creek and watered that tree and then went about his way. He didn't think nothing of it. In his life review, he was shown how beautiful that was. And then he was shown that when he was a teenager, their dad was beating on mom, and the sister was, they're both, him and his sister were teenagers, and he went into his sister, and she was sitting on the bed crying, and even though he felt weird sitting on her, beside his sister on her bed because they're teenagers, he put his arm around her and comforted her, and he was shown how wonderful that was. He didn't think anything of it. And just give somebody that shoulder to cry on, give that little withering plant some water. I mean,
Little
it's,
bitty things make it, like that driver that brought me a Happy Meal. That made me so happy, and just little things.
yeah, yeah. My sister is in a nursing home, and she has a roommate that takes her under her wing too. She's like her, I think he's like a guard dog. That lady was like a guard dog, and that's the way she is with my sister. And she
That
just
is good
watches out for her.
because you have to in those places. You do.
And it was
Because
so
there's
ironic.
good ones and there's bad ones.
It's so strange because my mom died in April, and I took my disabled sister down the hall. They're in the same nursing home, to show her that mom was dead so she would understand. And we're standing there at the bed looking down. Well, my sister's in a wheelchair, but we're looking down at my mom, and she's laying there dead. And my sister says, I'm wondering what she's going to say. Is she going to scream? Is she going to fall apart? I don't know. And she looks at my mom, and she says, looks at me, and she says, I'm worried about Martha. Martha's her roommate. That's all she had to say. I'm worried about Martha, because Martha had been gone a few days and she didn't know where she was. Come to find out, Martha was in the hospital, but the nursing home wasn't telling my sister because they knew she'd worry about her. And she said, I'm worried about Martha. That's all she had to say.
You never know. Someday she'll see your mother. I believe that.
Yeah. But I
I
mean, my
believe I'll
mom
see
just
my
wasn't
pets.
it was just the testimony to how wonderful Martha is. She cared more about Martha than our mother. And I didn't care about my mother either. I mean, she didn't want anybody to care about her. She's so mean and hateful. But she was just like, I'm worried about Martha. So those are good connections. Some are blessed with in those nursing homes. Good friendships can form.
Oh, yes, because people show up in your life and you just never know.
Angels among us. Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed hearing your story. I feel so bad for the things that's happened to you. I'm so happy that you're in a good place now. And I hope you get more Happy Meals.
Well, that make you stronger, though. You know, all this stuff makes me stronger, and I'm on social media with all this stuff saying don't give up and all this stuff, and I like that. But thank you for inviting me, and I hope when I did this, I meant about do that. I was trying not to, but I hope the
No, you
film
did
part will
good.
come out okay.
Yeah, you did good. Thank you.
And thank you, because I never even heard of you, but this is great. This is so great that you're doing this because it'll help so many people. And I often wondered about hospice, and those people must be scared, but there's nothing to be afraid of.
You said you like to read. I'll send you my book. And I'll send you the video where I read the first part too. So you can just listen to it if you like.
Oh, please do. I read everything, everything. I've got Kindle, I've got books, I've got thrift books. That's what I do is I read and watch positive things in quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and there's a whole different part of the world out here.
Fascinating. All right. Well, enjoy your 4th of July weekend.
You too, you too. I will. I probably won't do much, but that's okay.
I'm
You
just
never
cleaning.
know.
That's
I
all I
might.
do. Cleaning, working on the house. That's all I get done. But I'm
Yeah, but
happy
it
that
looks
I'm able to
pretty.
do it. You know, like some people can't get up and do anything. So
Oh, yes, yes, because I remember being paralyzed. They would put booties on my feet. And the first thing I could do was kick those booties off. And they would say, "You're paralyzed. You can't do that." And I would kick them off again. I didn't like those booties. But maybe that started what got me up too. So that was good.
well, I'm
And
glad
I'm
you're still
so
here.
glad to
How's things?
meet you.
How's things with your son now?
Let's see, my son he works for Federal Express. He's chief of a volunteer fire department. He's part of a rescue squad that when the helicopter goes up, he shimmies down the road to rescue whoever's in a gully or wherever they are. And he's got 4 daughters, but he's still, well, his dad is gone, so I went to him and said, now that dad is not here, why don't you come visit and stuff? But his wife, I don't know what his wife's problem is. That is the problem between me and my son. And the main problem, I think, is when I first left, I was not allowed to contact my children for a year because they were afraid that my children would tell my husband where I was at. And there was a time in the past that my husband admitted to his about his first wife to picking her up by her neck and shaking her because she interrupted one of his phone calls. And I always remember that because I thought, no, this ain't good. And so I was hidden. And then after the divorce, they still, well, my then daddy had lots of money and, bought lots of stuff. And then after he passed, my daughter is a nurse. She's an RN and she's head of a bunch of nursing homes in Florida. And now I Googled her address and she lives in a huge house with a swimming pool. So I'm hoping that maybe her daddy left her insurance money so she could buy that because it's
But they
mortgage.
don't see you. You don't get to see
No,
the kids and grandkids. That ticks
never.
me
They
off
won't.
because people out here they're doing, she's a nurse, he's doing these great things, and what about dear old mom? No matter how awful my mom was, not saying you're awful, but no matter how awful my mom was, I would never not go see her, even if she'd say stop coming, stop calling, lies about me, no matter what she did, because I always felt like just because she's a bad mother is no excuse for me to be a bad daughter. And I just really get upset with their all. I know so many people, their children have nothing to do with them. They were the perfect parents. They got so much to give, love for their kids and grandkids, and they just deny
Oh,
them.
yes.
They're just
Well,
snot.
my children were sickly. They had asthma real bad, and my son's eardrum kept bursting, so I homeschooled them. And then when my ex-husband got wild with his women, I put them in public school when they were in high school because I knew something had to give. And then I went to work at the high school teaching, substitute teaching every day so I could be with my kids.
It's just
So
like
we've
our
had a
people
tough
aren't
time, but
respected like they used to be. When I was
no, they're
little, we went
not.
and seen our grandparents regularly, and we treated our grandparents with respect. We never said anything wrong to our parents or our grandparents. You respected adults, and it just seems like now it's like, oh, they're old, or they don't have this, they don't have that, they don't fit all these molds we're supposed to fit in to be worthy to be in somebody's life, and we're just forgotten. And I feel so bad for all the people in nursing homes and disabled too in nursing homes. And people are just so forgotten. And I seen it when I was 18 working in a nursing home. The people that were forgotten.
They bring a lady into physical therapy from the nursing home, and she's only got one leg, and her back is held together with one pin, and she's hurting. And I don't understand why they can't give her something for pain, but they give her ice packs and heating packs, and what I understand it to me is government rules
My husband and
because
we take our small farm animals in and show the residents of the nursing home. I don't care if it's a little baby chick or a little baby lamb or goat or, oh my gosh, they just want to love something.
that's all everybody wants, I think. And I think that's what all this anger and shooting people and going into schools and let's shoot everybody. And there's so much anger out here.
A lot of hurt. That's
And then
right.
being able to get guns don't help.
Well, thank you. We just, like you say, got to focus on the positive, right? And try to let the negative go and help people where we can and do our best. And because you sure been through a lot and you certainly deserve the good life you have now. So I'm
But
happy
there's,
for you.
I went, there were some things that I didn't even get to that the nursing home accidentally, when I had a hysterectomy, they forgot to take the fentanyl patch off. And then during the surgery, they didn't know it was on there. And I overdosed on fentanyl. But I lived. I just couldn't go back to the nursing home because of that. And then we had to sign papers, and that was a big mess. But it wasn't my fault either. People make mistakes, and there's a reason.
Yeah.
But we'll make it.
We'll
We
make
will.
it.
I promise we will. And it was so nice to meet you and keep in touch. You got my email, and I got your email, and you never know.
Okay. I'll send you my book and the video where I did
Yes.
my first part of it. So, all right. Thank
Oh,
you.
please do. Please
I
do.
will.
That. Oh, I appreciate that so much.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I love to
All
read.
right. I'll talk to you later.
I will talk to you later too, and always be positive. No matter how gray it is, there's a sunshine and a rainbow behind it.
Yep, that's true. We just gotta look for it, huh?
Yep, just gotta look for it and ride it out. Bye bye.
Ride that pony. Hang on.
That's right.
Just
Are
need to
you
get
on
tired and settle
Facebook?
down.
Are you on Facebook?
I had a big Facebook, almost 5,000 friends, and all these into ears. And I got rid of it a couple of months because it was so time consuming, and I wasn't getting my work
Yes.
here at house done, and then
Yes, you had
on
a
my
choice.
channel
Yes.
work for that done. And so I got rid of it. So I just have this little Facebook now that I just have a few family and friends, and then but I use it to contact my guests. So you can, I'll send you a link to that. You can, so you can contact me on Facebook. I'll put you on there.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I've got that new uh page I wrote, surf without waves to succeed.
Okay.
And I'm just now building that up because that's what I did. I surfed and didn't look at no waves, and that's how I got here.
Okay. All right then.
Thank you so much,
Uh-huh. All right.
and we will see each other again somewhere.
Yes, we will. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.